Hey guys, I haven't fed my starter like in a week, and this is what it looks like. The longest my starter has gone without being fed, it's about a month, and yes, it's been that long sometimes, and it still turns out perfect every single time. This particular one is about 2 years old, is my best so far, and like I said, it can go a month without feeding and it will not fade me. It's amazing. I use it for croissants, for like a lot of things. I usually feed my sourdough, and in about an hour it's all bubbly and it's active and it's ready for me to use it for a loaf of bread. However, there are days like I would not leave it on my counter for longer than 2 or 3 hours being active. If for some reason I'm not able to bake that bread within that window of time, I will put it in the fridge, and for another 12 hours it will be perfect and ready to be. I don't want to say that I'm an expert because I am not. I am definitely not an expert. I just love cooking. I love baking. I love making things from scratch. You might give it a go. So let's feed the starter. Here is my starter, and I like to have it in a jar. It's kind of like this, and just give it a little bit of air. The starter loves to have air, but it needs to be covered at the same time. So that's what I use. Even when I let it rise on the counter, that's exactly what I do. So as you can see, it's bubbly. It's not all foamy, but it's bubbly. If you want to start your sourdough, it's recommended to use equal part water, equal part flour. And you will be doing this by putting it on a scale in grams is the easiest. So don't use ounces or things like that. Grams are very, very exact. So you will start with 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water. Don't make the mistake of saying it's milliliters, weighs the same. It's approximate. If when you write started, it's very, very important to have the exact quantities. If you're not planning on using yeast for your first starting it, you can use 1 or 2 grams of yeast right at the beginning and it's gonna be fine. However, I don't use yeast for starting my sourdough. That's what makes it last so long. If you plan on using yeast, I don't know if it's gonna be that good. My very first starter had yeast in it and it would turn gray from time to time. This is the perfect color for the sourdough starter and I really love it. I could bake bread with this one the way it is and it should be fine. So like I said, equal quantities. If you want to make a lot of it, you can use 200 grams and 200 grams. However, I don't think so. If you're right at the beginning, you won't be needing that much starter. So 100 grams of water, 100 grams of flour should do it for you. I might do a whole video of how to make just the starter, but now we're going to feed the starter. If you're interested in that video, just comment down below and I will be happy to make it for you. What I do now is I take flour. I have a whole thing of flour that sits on my counter all the time, and I add flour. I don't measure this thing because I know the consistency should be, but you can always go with, like I said, equal parts and it should be perfectly fine. And I add water. And what I do is I mix it, and I mix it really well until everything is perfectly combined. I know that the starter should dissolve all your flour for you, but I like to see exactly my consistency because I don't measure exactly, and I will dissolve it. I'm really happy with the consistency. In time, it will get more watery, but this is what I like to have it. Here is what I like. It's very elastic and it's kind of like you have the feeling that it's ready and it will float. That's the consistency I like to have. And after it's really well combined, like this is what it should look like. It's like it's ready. This is very elastic, it's clingy, and it looks like this. That's perfect. I am going to leave it do its thing for, hold on, I'm putting the lid on and let it do its thing for about an hour to 3 hours, and I'll see when I am ready to start making that loaf of bread. And like I said before, if I'm going to make it in that window of time, 1 to 3 hours, it's going to be on my counter. If I decide to make it longer, it's going to be from the fridge, and I use it from the fridge. I don't know, like I know many people say it should be room temperature or on that. I use it from the fridge, and I use warm water for the bread, and it's a win-win. And sometimes if I'm in a hurry, I will add warm water to my starter, and in half an hour I can use it. That's a trick, but you don't want to be doing that with a very fresh starter. I feed my starter about 4 times a week, so you know, it's a lot of times, and now I can do whatever. Sometimes I will just go classic because I don't want to do too many crazy things to my starter that I like to use in all sort of recipes. But sometimes I will feed my starter buttermilk, and if I do that, I'm gonna take a discard part of it and add buttermilk, and then feed the rest water, and I'm going to be using that in a recipe with the buttermilk. But I will not do this to my main starter because yeah, there are recipes that require other things. I will take the excess off because flour is something that is really difficult to clean, at least in my opinion. I hate cleaning flour, and it will stay this way for a while. See you a bit later when I'm ready to make my bread.